Alright guys, in today's video we have got a Volkswagen Golf, and we're going to show you and guide you through the steps to take down each of the individual plastics in order for this roof lining to be dropped down and then removed out the car, because this one's coming where it's sagging. You can hardly see with the footage, but it's sagging around here slightly. Up there you can see it's sagging, but majority of it's happening in that rear middle light section. That's where it's completely letting go. So in order for us to fix it, and for a professional fix that you guys might be wanting to do and tackle yourself, is to drop this headlining board down completely out the car, take off the old material, that all goes in the bin, and then you scrub down the headlining board, bring it back to a nice clean surface, and then recover with brand new material, and then basically reinstall it back in. So usually the sunroofs do last much longer, so what you do there, you just color match to the sunroof and you can leave it alone. Yeah, majority of the time they're not sagging and they're lasting much longer, so this one's in good condition, so we're going to leave it. But so the process to drop down one of these roof linings, also these steps can be kind of the same on a Volkswagen, Passat, the Tiguans and the Jettas. The only thing with the Jettas would be, because they're a sedan, the back section there's like a reinforced plastic that's underneath the back of the headlining, so you've got to take off a few screws to drop the headlining board down. And also the thing that makes the sedans a bit harder to do is the removal stage, because you've got to take it out through the usually the front passenger door. You flex it out through the front passenger door or the rear driver's side door, and they get difficult to remove. They're like a reinforced headlining board, and it's very hard to flex and bend them out the car, so they get quite difficult just with that aspect of trying to get the headlining board out. However, being a Volkswagen Golf or a Tiguan, you're going to find that, yeah, it's easy. You just take it out through the rear tailgate. So moving ahead, I would normally take off the grab handles first. So there's a little plastic cover, and you just pop that cover down, and then you'll gain access to a couple of screws, and those screws would be the T20 Torx head type of screw. So the T20 fitting would go on there and take that one down. Now some Volkswagens, when you take the grab handles down, there's a little metal clip behind the screw, and that can actually fall out of place, and then sometimes you might lose it because it might fall inside the metal frame of the car, or you just hear it hit the headlining board. So other times they're a fixed unit behind there and they never fall out of place. So just keep that in mind. If they do fall out of place, it can be a pain to line all the stuff back up again and put that screw back through that hole when you go to reinstall it. That's the only things that can slow these cars down, is just the fiddly stuff that goes behind all these plastics. It just takes much longer than any other car. So if we're tackling a Ford Falcon or a Holden Commodore, it's simple, just a simple screw that comes out and you're done with that little section. Volkswagens, they are a completely different story. Take the screw out. Sometimes on some models, some year makes, they will have something that falls out of place behind, and you got to sit and line it up, or sometimes even replace the part that's behind it because maybe it's been damaged or you just lost it. So keep that in mind. So we drop down the grab handle, 2 screws, drop it out, move to the back, do the same with that, and then best to check, make sure all the lights are working before you do start the job. That way, if they do not work at the end when you go to reinstall it, you know it was due to the recovery, or they're basically dropping down there and reinstalling the headlining stage. So maybe you've hit a wire and you've earthed the system out. So yeah, check to make sure they all work, and the rear light as well. So once that's all done, we've taken off the grab handles, we would move then towards this section here. So you take that sun visor clip out, there's a little tab, and you pop the tab out, and then you gain access to the screw. Very similar in the same setup as the grab handles. And then you would move to the sun visor. So same thing, there'll be a tab there. You take the screw out. I'd like to keep the sun visors just in place for now, if the screw's out, because they normally sit there in place anyway with the screw being out. Because that's probably the hardest section on these cars, is just the sun visor section. So maybe I'll just go into that in a minute. You would move then towards this whole sunglasses console case section. Drop down that sunglasses part there first, get a flathead screwdriver in there and pop out this shelf. With the shelf out, then you move into this middle plastic and you pop that down. Same thing by getting like a little flathead screwdriver behind there and just plying it off. Then you move to that last section and you pop that section off. So the screws that are holding this whole unit on after all that's come off would be a couple of screws at the front, a couple of screws in the middle, and also a couple of screws at the back section. Then you can drop this section down. Alright, so we went ahead and just took off the ones that we've already discussed. And so this part here, right at the back there, when you do take off those two screws in the middle to drop this part down, there's 3 plugs you just have to unplug. And once you've done that, you'll get access to the plug right at the back, and that's pretty much what feeds the whole wire harness for the whole roof lining itself. So you just unplug that one as well. And now with those 2 screws at the back taken out, the ones in the center and the ones at the top, you can then drop down this whole plastic frame away from the roof lining by, there's a couple of tabs there, and you kind of just release them, and that piece will come down now like that. So that's the sunglasses console section all dismantled and ready for the roof lining to be dropped down. So that's all that was needed for that part. Keep in mind that it gets quite tight here to drop down the roof lining, so you usually have to get your hand in there and just kind of like release where it's been pushed in to this section here. There's actually like a plastic frame that kind of pushes in to where those sun visor plugs are. So when you go to remove it, if it does get tight there, you just got to get your hand in there and just kind of pull down on it just to release it. But we're not going to do that section yet, because we have got the sunroof section to kind of like release and drop down. So I'll show you that in a minute. With the sun visors, with that screw taken out, there's a couple of ways now to drop down this sun visor. And one of those is, you just, with that screw gone, you can then take this sun visor out of its position, which is like that. There's a little tab, and there's 2 ways to take this one out. So I usually, there's 2 ways that I approach it depending on the wire setup behind it, because they do change. So with this one, there's basically a plug there that plugs in the back of the sun visor clip. So if it's got a plug, I would usually just take the wiring off like as it is now, and you're done with the job. But if it's kind of like I think it's like almost like welded to the sun visor, if it is, then you've got to unplug the sun visor from about somewhere in here, which means leave it where it's sitting back in position, drop down the headlining. With the headlining drop down, then you unplug it. But keep in mind that when you do drop down the headlining, don't put too much tension on this section, otherwise you can break the wiring harness, because it kind of feeds up through a bracket that plugs into the roof line, that plugs into the actual metal frame of your car, the roof, and then that wiring harness kind of comes back down to the headlining. So if you drop down this headlining board and put too much pressure on that section, you're going to break that little, it's like little tape wire. It's very fragile stuff like that there. So yeah, this one here, we're just going to unplug it from that section there. So I'll just get like a flathead screwdriver in there and just kind of like lever off that little plug there. Best to have the headlining system unplugged there, that way there's no power there, because if you do cross those wires, you may earth the system out, blow a fuse. So that's what we're going to do now, and then we'll move into just dropping down this sunroof, which is really, you're just getting in behind, because we're leaving the sunroof shade in the car. So just to drop down the headlining, you're just getting your hands behind this sill and just gently releasing, pulling down and releasing the sill. You'll hear, well, basically there's a few plugs, metal clips. There's normally like one there, about 3 on this side. Going in the back section, there's probably about 5, I think there is, and then 3 again, and then a couple there. So you're just getting behind it and just gently releasing the actual headlining board away from that part there, the plastic. And then once that's done, to drop down the headlining board, we leave the pillars in place, the C pillar, the B pillar and the A pillar, because what you can do there is you can flex the headlining board away from the pillar, because they only go probably about a couple of centimeters deep underneath the pillar, so you can get behind there, maybe using a plastic trim removal tool, and you can get under that sill and pull the sill, basically pull the headlining away from the sill and flex. It's a bit hard to do with one hand at the moment, but what I'll do is I'll put links in the description below of us with the GoPro on tackling all these plastics. There might not be a voiceover to it, but you can kind of compare this video with that video and put the job together. But yeah, with the we have a few videos we've already previously done for these models where we have the GoPro on and we're filming how to take off all these plastics and remove the headlining board out the car, recover it in brand new material, then reinstall it back in. So if you're interested in that, make sure you do check out the description below. We'll put the links to the Volkswagen playlist where we've done, with all the Volkswagen videos we've loaded up, they're all in one place. They're just in a nice little neat playlist. Otherwise, we'll tag a few of our most popular Volkswagen headlining repairs where we show you how to do the full process. There just might not be the voiceover on them. I'm pretty sure it's just music in the background. But yeah, so I'm going to put the camera down now and we'll go ahead and take off that sun visor clip. We'll flex this headlining board away from those pillars. We'll drop down the headlining board away from that sunroof section, and we're going to be pretty much up to the stage where we can show you what's behind the headlining. Alright, so we've dropped down the headlining board away from the sunroof section now, and these are those metal clips that I was talking about where you got to kind of pull the headlining away from them. So they look kind of line up here on the headlining board. There's a few kind of going around here. So some of them are actually still on the headlining board, some of them have let go and on that plastic surround there still. So keep in mind, like, yeah, just make sure you collect them all, don't drop them anywhere or lose them. And we flex the headlining board away from those A pillars, from the B pillars, and then we can pull the headlining forward and away from the rear section. Now, at the rear section, there was a rear plastic section right at the back there. We kind of just remove that out the way. That's quite easy. You just kind of like get behind it and then pull it down. So with the headlining in this position now, we've unplugged that wiring in the middle at the beginning. So we just got to make sure that these wiring sections near the sun visors are not snagged or anything like that, because if they are and we go to pull this headlining down, we're going to break the wiring. So that's what we're up to now. If you left the sun visor connected, that'll be still a section that you got to get to now. So getting behind the headlining board, you'll see the wiring still connected. It kind of feeds up into that metal bracket. So this is behind the headlining sun visor section. There's that wire, tape wire stuff that goes up to that metal bracket that's connected to the roof itself, and it kind of feeds up through that little section. And there's that wiring plug that we unplugged from the sun visor. So you can see here, if you pull down, you're going to put too much stress on that wire and it's going to break. So this is where it gets quite tricky, because it's a tight gap to get in there and kind of work. So you can get just behind there and just release that plug and pull it through like that. So if you had left your sun visor connected, the way I would do this would be to unplug it like that, and this headlining board would have been still up. So it would have looked like this. The headlining board's still up. I would have got behind there, unplugged that section where it's connected to that metal bracket. Gets more trickier this way. So the other option would be like the sun visor would be still connected to that plug, and you gently pull it down, don't put too much weight on it, and pull the wiring harness all the way through and unplug it from that section there, and then from that point onwards we'll just drop down with the sun visor. So that's one way you could do it. And then when you go to reconnect it, of course you're going to have to plug up the sun visor itself to that section there, but you know that section there's got to go up here somewhere, so you kind of got to feed it through and line it all up. So there's a couple of options you can do with dropping down and reinstalling the sun visors. That's pretty much where they get most tricky on the Volkswagen Golf. And also this whole section here, when it gets kind of like tense and it doesn't want to drop down, you got to put a bit of tension behind there and just kind of pull it down gently until it unplugs, because there's these little plastic plugs right at the back there that kind of push into the metal part of the roof lining and just jams in there nice and tight. So there we go, there's the headlining board dropped down and ready to be taken out the rear tailgate. That's what the headlining looks like inside. So you have got the side curtain airbags that are bolted there. We didn't touch none of that, so that just stays exactly the way it is. We didn't interfere with any of the pillars, and all the wiring is all there connected except for that tape wire that's stuck to the board. That stays exactly where it is. We just got to unplug the sun visor lights and the light section in the middle over there. These little metal clips on the, if you have got a sunroof section, just make sure you don't lose any, so they're in there nice and tight, so we're just going to leave them there for now. There is one left there that came off the headlining board, so we will note that and put it back into place in a minute. But yeah, that's the headlining board in the Volkswagen Golf, all removed. Those brackets stayed exactly where they are, they're nice and tight, so we know how to reassemble the headlining board up to that point and then push the wiring over the top, line it all up, push the sun visor board back into place. These metal clips are the ones that are easier to work with. See how they kind of just stay exactly where they are and they don't fall out of place. Sometimes in this section here you'll have like a little metal tab that you got to kind of line up, and sometimes it falls out of place and you put it back in, falls out of place, you put a screw through, it doesn't go through, it just becomes a nightmare sometimes. So we're blessed today with having the easy clip to work with, but sometimes they can vary and change in different makes and models. And the same goes for the grab handle mount section. That plastic shroud has stayed exactly where it is, so, and those screw mounts there, they're fixed, so they're never going to move. So this is the good section, well, this is the good setup that we like. Everything stays the same, ready and lined up to feed the grab handle back in and apply those screws through the gaps there. However, there can be that setup with a little metal bracket that falls out of place, and yeah, they just become a bit of a pain to work on. So just keep that in mind. You may have that set up and it may require more attention there. But that's it, guys. That's the headlining board all removed. So yeah, we'll put some links in the description below showing you us working on these type of cars with the GoPro on, and you guys can follow along. But at least you got a bit of a detailed process of how to work on these Volkswagens, and hopefully you found this video quite helpful. If you did, make sure you give a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment on your biggest takeaway or what you might want to see and for us to add in the days and weeks ahead, and we'll try to cover that in future videos. Otherwise, we'll see you here on the next video. Cheers.
just a little after a quarter to one. One keeping waiting. David has been kind enough to give us a ring with some traffic information. Perhaps, I really don't know. Let's find out from the man himself. So, Dave, thanks for the call. Good afternoon. What can you tell us traffic-wise?
Yeah, g'day, Coco. Car's been knocked out on Touareg and attached to the car pole. There's other cars that are car and also there's police guys coming to from the city, so there'll be major delays anyway coming to from the city road.
Okay, so whereabouts is it again? Cars crashed into a traffic pole. Right,
Truck hit the car pole.
all right.
And the traffic light has been heading towards the city on Touareg Road.
And where?
On Touareg Road.
Goodwood Road. Oh, busy at any time of the day.
And also there's police and motor hands together at the moment today and coming out of the city as well, again on Touareg Road.
So there's going to be delays along Goodwood Road for quite a while, I'd imagine, with the truck having crashed into a car line. David, thank you for that. Always appreciate traffic information, even petrol prices. We're keen on that too. If you're planning something as important as a wedding reception, perhaps it's an anniversary, a reunion, a business get-together where you can actually get together face-to-face, and you're looking for something that's affordable and close to the middle of town, the company in Regal Park up there at Barton Terrace up in North Adelaide have got a conference facility that can cater for about 70 or 80 people comfortably. It's been refurbished. It really is superb. We've got free parking out the back. You're close to O'Connell Street, not too far away from the Adelaide Oval. The parkland's opposite, and it's there's on-site accommodation available. They can do all of the catering, so keep it in mind that it's absolutely affordable. Give the studio a ring up there on 267 3222 and organise the time to actually go on up and have a look, see for yourself. That's the company in Regal Park and the conference facility up there at 44 Barton Terrace up in North Adelaide. A really good spot, absolutely affordable and close to all of the amenities you could possibly wish for. Pooka from Ron. Joe Biden has no idea. He probably couldn't tell you what happened yesterday. That's from Ron. Okay, Ron. Pooka. Isn't it funny how politicians complain about the union's wage demands for police and nurses, but you don't hear a thing whenever they get a pay rise? That's from Ken. Okay, Ken? An email here from Jen. Pooka. Here's my conspiracy theory. Trump having a coronavirus is a load of rubbish. He's putting it on to show Americans how strong he is. He wants the sympathy vote. He wants America to look at him and would think, wow, if he can get through the virus, then we all can. It's just a huge publicity stunt designed by Trump to get re-elected. The guy is a lunatic from Jen. All right. All sorts of opinions out of the place. Right. Congratulations to Leon from Jane. She says, ghetto blasters shouldn't be manufactured. What a stupid thing to make. I'm glad they're having some control over these things. People have been shot at the street, and these are frightening things. Good on you, Leon. Thanks for bringing it up as a subject this morning on the program. And that's from, who's that from Jane, who sent us that email. We were talking before about, I think it was Brett who said a gentle argument broke out at a function that he was at last night as to what is the most popular sweet in this country.